Hello. I found the Ettrick knife. Well, I call it the Ettrick. I think I probably shouldn't call it the Ettrick, being as I'm a blade pedant, and it's not really an Ettrick. But anyway, it was just over there, behind the sharpening stones, when I made my luthier knife revision video. So I was just checking this with a magnet, because I didn't really recall how much blade stock there is still inside this knife, but that's telling me that that's where the end of the tang is. So if this were a straight razor, then yeah, the tang sticks out, right? So that's the end of the tang, so the actual blade stock probably starts about here. Maybe I want this a little longer. So let's say that I do. Just take this knife here. Now I recall that I glued this together with this automotive epoxy, and that wasn't a good idea at all. I thought it would be like a shiny black epoxy, but it's like this foamy stuff that split open there, and there's still some of it somewhere. Anyway, I kept carving into it, and most of that came out again. There's a bit of that automotive epoxy. Here's a wormhole. Could get filled at some point. Yeah, so I mean, there we go. Now I have a tiny little bit more blade. You know, fraction of a millimeter. But you see the principle. As I sharpen this blade, it's going to get shorter at the tip. So then I can keep exposing and keep on having this nice little scalpel-like sort of quasi-Wharncliffe. Not the central point of what I'm trying to do here, which is present once more the lilac lamb's foot with a little more work done on it. This kind of resembles cut flesh to me. Maybe a good reminder when you go to pick up the knife, right? Anyway, this came off the scales of the old razor, and although it is celluloid, I think it's worth conserving. And so it was on this side of the scales, I guess, right? Wasn't it? Yeah. Oh no, wait, because because they do a sway back on the straight razor too. So not on the show side, as it were, of your conventional pocket knife where you'd have your shield here, but I wouldn't want to put it there anyway because of this. Which made me think not to do it, also because of the extra work involved and what have you. But I don't know, I think I can make that, cut it down and make it fit quite nicely in between these two pins here. Just a bit of fun. Also, I was thinking, wow, I'd like to make another video with this now that it's a little more polished, and start testing it out. Because things will turn up, you know. You might say, oh, you know, where here, maybe I might want to round it off a little more there when my fingers grab here, but I'm not sure because maybe that wouldn't work so well when I'm doing pull cuts. I did just realize that, you know, there is the makings of a sharpening choil down there if I cut this out a little, because that is where the tang, I mean, that's where the blade ends, and there's a roll in there. So, you know, if I get in there a little bit, make myself a sharpening choil, that'll help for sharpening. Although, you know, not really cutting down there much, but be a little better. So, you know, no rush on that. But I was thinking, well, what can I carve? Maybe I'll just grab this piece of lilac wood from which I took this handle and start making another one. Then I remembered about this. So let's see how this thing cuts some old celluloid. Oh, this will probably be a belt grinder job, but they make so much noise and dust and so I guess I'll get this approximately shaped, and maybe I'll start carving in on this, or maybe I should get this fully shaped and then start carving. That's probably the way to do it. So what we want is the opposite of this profile. We want flat. Hopefully there's enough there for a kind of a flat, and then rounded on the other side so that it can go in, you know, nice and flush. Then when you carve in here, you actually do the opposite. Try and carve in a little in that way. Get some nice gaps in there. Get it really flush around the edges. And epoxy. I reckon epoxy will do it. I mean, pinning it in somehow, that would be really classy, but I don't think, well, that idea only just occurs to me. Maybe some lilac pins. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be harming the edge too much. It's pretty tough cutting. Yeah, so I mean, once I get this mostly done like that, then I can put it on a flat and some sandpaper, tidy it up a bit. Well, we've done a bit of that. Let me grab the lilac wood. Since we're here, not that far in, I use a slingshot. This is good. Look at that. You know what this reminds me of? Doesn't that remind you of candy corn? You know what I'm talking about? Candy corn? So, same kind of notion, right? We're going to try and just take a rectangle. And that crack, I think, is new, but that's conveniently in the right place. That's where it would split anyway. So good. I don't usually whittle on the table like this, but for cinematographical purposes. Okay, and now you see how the big handle can really come into its own. Comparative study. Lovely little EDC Wharncliffe. Very similar on the cutting edge. You know, technically a little shorter, but actually more cutting edge available on this one because of the choil, right? You got that heel there. That's pretty cool. Right, so now you want to grab this and cut in. You can, I'm telling you, the blade is good. The blade is comparably sharp, but you can just see, right? The ergos are not really there. Right? And if I'm doing this, how big a blade do I need? Around 3 inches will do, yeah? Even how wide does it need to be? I mean, actually, there's a very comparable amount of mass in each of these blades, because this is a hollow, very shallow hollow, right from the top here. I'm sure they'd call it a flat grind, but you can see from me laying it flat on a stone that it is hollow. Whereas this is, you know, what you're seeing, look closely, it's wider than the reflection, because it bulges out a little bit, right? And then you have this rounded kind of flat, right? Am I lined up? Excuse me, that was not correct in terms of perspective. So yeah, to carry on the belt, yeah, this is nice. Yeah, goes on my little dangler right there. But I did check with the castrum sheath, and this rides in there just fine. Yeah, a little more bulky, a bit more problematic when you get into a low car or whatever, but actually, you know what else, comparative study wise? Why don't we do this? Try and get that where the, there we go. .848. Very lightweight knife. .121. So it's a little heavier, but you know, not by much. I'll pop that back in there. And whittle a little more on this. Oh, I just landed a flake in my tea. I had a comment from a commenter saying, "Oh, you sure that's lilac, man? I carved lilac wood one time. It's really hard." I'm like, yeah. Oh, he said, I don't know if it's lilac is the same in the US as in the UK. Over here, it's really hard. Oh, I don't know, but I figure it's one and the same lilac. When I looked it up, I can't remember to tell you the Janka hardness, but it's harder than oak, not as hard as Osage orange. Let's see how the William Collins Sloyd knife does this. Whoa. Yeah. It's next level. Next level knife. But, I mean, actual performance-wise, it's not that far of a difference. And, I don't know, I think that the edges on this is going to improve significantly because it's still very thin down here, right? So as we work back, we'll keep hitting these shoulders, and this will, you know, it won't be much thicker that way, but just a little bit, you know, very thin down there. Yeah, it's a very kind of steep hollow, but eventually, you know, the hollow goes. See how that cuts? It's not sharp, but it's just you know, it's just a wedge. Yeah, it's sharp. It's pretty sharp. Let's see. So. Yeah. Well, that's certainly been punishing on any edge. Maybe a little more ragged than before, but it's just so thin. It's just so thin behind the edge, and it's good steel. Nowadays you got your cryogenics, you got your super steels, you got all this stuff, right? And yet we're making more crap knives than ever. And I reckon that, what would this be? Let's say halfway through the last century in Solingen, they knew their razor steels and they knew their heat treatments. They really did. File testing kits. Yes. Okay, 55. 55 to 57. Well, I mean, we'll go in at 50. Skating, of course. $55 to $57. Skating. 60 to 62. I reckon we're going to get a bite. Where are we going to put it? Where am I going to hit with a stone soon? Well, we'll do it on this side somewhere. Nice and shiny. Right there. I know. That's skating. So, according to my file testing kit, friends, we are over 62 Rockwell on this blade. Which, to my mind, is not, that's far from assured. Right? So, you tell me, 64 to 66. Could it be? I mean, it's 64 to 66 is also not scratched. Let me try again. Try this. Oh, okay. I didn't press hard enough. I think we're getting bite. Not much, if we are. I think it was just starting to dig in. So, what you can do, I think, is extrapolate from that we are running over 60 HRC. And that might explain, I made this musical blades video earlier. How great does that sound? You got your vibrating tempered steel laminate and a sounding block. Yeah. So, very similar sound from this piece of Magna cut and this piece of vintage Zollingen. And also very similar cutting capability. You know, now I would like to do some sisal rope cutting tests with a whole variety of knives. But, you know, for now, just whittle on this spoon for a minute. Okay. That's against the grain, by the way. Oops, goes off camera. And certainly, yeah, this is very aggressive cut with the hollow grind. But because the edge is convex, you know, you can control it. It doesn't just dig in. You can cut back out as well. Yeah, which is really what, you know, something like this is good for this kind of thing. Making a musical instrument. Making a slingshot. But yeah, there's a reason why the lamb's foot blade has been a popular EDC for probably a couple of centuries now. Can do a lot of stuff with this. Think about it, it's quite robust. Not much of a point to snap off on it, but it's got a point. You know, you get in and clean under your nails with that, no problem. Okay, that's 22 minutes and 10 seconds. I reckon that's enough. Thanks for watching. Hasta la próxima.